Welcome back to another episode of It's in the Details. As always, hit the buttons, subscribe, like, tell a friend to tell a friend, okay? This week, we're doing something I haven't done in a while. I wrote a little something. I want you to watch a show called Mr. Robot. I think it's good. You'll hear about it. But first, F1. It was a wild race this past weekend. The grid was topsy-turvy. Qualifying was weird. Remember I told you a few weeks back, Max drove his car on top of Lewis. He got a penalty, and then he took a brand new engine, which creates a bigger penalty than the penalty he got for driving over Lewis's head, and basically nullified that penalty. Whether or not that should be a thing that's allowed to happen is neither my business nor yours. They got to sort that out. But it seems a little suspect, if you know what I'm saying. We get to the race, and one Lando Norris had pole position. One Lando Norris drove the wheels off of his car. And then the rain started with 4 laps left, and Lando Norris drove the wheels off of his car. Everybody went in and got some wet tires. Lando stayed out. Lando was in the lead. He had track position, as they like to say in F1 circles. So if the man in the lead goes in for tires before everybody else goes in for tires, then everybody else behind him thinks maybe we can stay out, steal that position on Lando, who had Lewis Hamilton behind him, and you stay out. You stay out, you think you can drive in the wet on the regular slick tires, and that didn't work out. It was very similar to a couple months back. Lewis Hamilton had pole position. The teams didn't know if they needed wet tires or dry tires. They all went out on wets for the formation lap. They found it was dry enough, and they all dipped in. Every single car dipped into the pits for wet tires. For slick tires. Lewis stayed out because of track position. Race starts. Lewis is on the grid by himself. He goes out, has to come in for slicks. Everybody zips by him. He's now in last. Okay? Same thing happened to Lando this week. Track position. He had his track position. He did not want to go in for tires and give anybody an opportunity. And Lando was driving all over the world. Everywhere except on track. Lewis Hamilton ends up winning the race. I was gutted. I felt bad for Lando. It seems like most of the racers, most of the drivers in F1 seem like pretty good dudes. Most of them seem like good. Forget racing. They seem like good people. We don't know any of these people, but they seem like good people. Lando seems like he's top 5, like one of the really, really good guys. He's young. He's talented. He seems nice. He seems, he's got a great sense of humor. He seems like a kind of person you'd want to hang out with. So this was his push for his first win. I'm not sure anybody wanted him to lose. I'm not sure any of the other teams wanted him to lose. But he lost. Sucked. It's hard to watch. It's really hard to watch. Out of respect, I have changed my desktop wallpaper to some McLaren Lando Norris wallpaper. Out of respect. He's not dead. He lost a race. But I had some Lewis Hamilton wallpaper up, and it was time for it to come down. It was just time. And now Lando is my wallpaper. You guys don't need all this information. Anyway, it was a riveting race. If you missed it, you got to wise up. These races are fire this season. I saw a stat today, 60% of the racers have been on the podium. That's a lot of parity. I mean, they're not going to win. Either Lewis or Max are going to win the championship, but For it to be rotating through has kept it very, very interesting for neutrals like me. I love it. It's so good. I'm addicted. I'm also aware of the Schumacher documentary that's out. Okay, I haven't watched it yet. In case you were wondering why I haven't talked about it, I haven't watched it yet. I'm waiting for the right time. Maybe an F1 free weekend would be the right time. Although I've heard it's sad. Sad. I don't know what happened. Don't get in the comments and tell me. I haven't been keeping abreast of what's going on with Michael Schumacher, so I don't know. Maybe he had an injury. I don't know what happened. Don't spoil it for me, okay? I'll let you know what I think about it when I watch it, okay? But it seems like it's sad, guys. And you know what's sad about that is it seems like he's another nice guy too. Are all of these F1 drivers nice people? No, clearly not all of them, but it seems most of them are. Anyway. Watch F1. You'll like it. You might not love it like I do, but you'll like it. It's fun. Where do you start with a dystopian cybercrime thriller of a drama? You could start with the way the script piques your interest, or the expertly crafted ensemble of a cast, or the intriguing way it is all shot. I prefer to start with the idea of a missed opportunity. I found Mr. Robot after it completed its run. I knew it existed, but I failed to find the desire to hit play on episode 1 until we were well in the throes of the pandemic. Nothing is quite like the behemoth Game of Thrones is, but I feel like these two shows may have shared one big similarity. I imagine that there were definitely season and series finale watch parties for Mr. Robot. If you watched the show, you either loved it or hated it. And while I so rarely watch TV shows when they're on, primarily because that is barely a thing anymore, I watched the Game of Thrones finale when it aired because of the communal aspect of that finale. I would have watched Mr. Robot's finale live as well. The show did such a great job at building towards its season and series finales for multiple episodes that it feels like I really did miss out on an event by not being a part of them at that time. The ratings for this show were not great while it was on, but it feels like a show to me that would develop a cult following now that you can stream it whenever you want. There really is nothing like getting in the group chat and finding out which of your friends you have to disown because they have terrible opinions on really good TV shows, or are your true best friends because they thought that finale was as good as you did. The grandeur of the show cannot be undermined. The focus of Elliot Alderson, played by Rami Malek, and his team of relentlessly resourceful hackers is to take down colossal corporation E-Corp, and later on, the Deus Group. Think Apple meets Walmart plus crime. The people involved on that side consist of high-powered executives and the wealthiest, most ruthless men and women from around the world. So with that kind of wealth at play, you are guaranteed to see some stunning locations throughout the series. There are amazing homes, including a smart home, which is hijacked by hackers. People, just turn on your lights by yourself. Select your music with your hands. Computers don't have to do all of this stuff for us. There are all sorts of cool buildings we get to see around New York City, including the Queens Museum, which is the home of the panorama of the city of New York, which is a 3D map of the city. It is truly remarkable. You can Google it without having to watch the show, but watch the show and see when it shows up. And while I know many people find office buildings to be beacons of stodgy capitalism, some of the offices we enter in this show are truly breathtaking. If you have to go to work every day in an office, you would want it to look like these ones. Mr. Robot also joins the list of TV and film productions to shut down, or appear to shut down, Times Square for filming. While the idea of shutting down Times Square is no longer original, if you've been to Times Square, seeing it completely devoid of people while everything is lit up never, ever loses its novelty. The cast is incredible. I am not IMDb, so I'm not going to name everyone, but my goodness, you could. Rami Malek. If you don't know who he is, you probably haven't seen his Oscar-winning performance as Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody. I haven't seen the majority of what he's done, but everything I have seen, I have thoroughly enjoyed. Christian Slater plays Mr. Robot, a kind of modern-day swashbuckling pirate of a man, but instead of seas and ships, he's focused on corporations and hacking. Portia Doubleday, Carly Chaikin, and Grace Gummer headline a long list of strong, intriguing female characters in this show. Portia plays Elliot's lifelong friend, Angela Moss. They are as close as Elliot's personality will allow, and they both share some of the same personal traumas. Carly plays his sister, Darlene, who is a foul-mouthed computer hacking genius, and she brings as much comedy and emotional turmoil as you can handle. Grace Gummer, Meryl Streep's daughter. That really should be enough to get you intrigued, but she plays an FBI agent, whom when asked why she joined the FBI, answered, "I am disgusted by the selfish brutality of the world, but at the same time, I am utterly fascinated by it." The FBI is the perfect place for that contradiction. B.D. Wong, who I was introduced to as a medical examiner on Law & Order SVU, and then several smallish but weighty roles in Jurassic World, Gotham, and more, I've always liked his work. But in Mr. Robot, his portrayal of White Rose has forever changed the way I look at B.D. as an actor. I feel an urge to track down as much of his work as possible now. My favorite character, without a doubt, is played by Elliot Villar. He plays an absolutely confounding gangster named Vera. To be perfectly honest, he is something you simply have to see to believe. I haven't even mentioned Joey Badass or Bobby Cannavale, who are both spectacular in their smaller roles. And there are so many more characters and actors I haven't even mentioned that are central to the story. These are just the names of the people I know. The people with 1 and 2 lines over 5 or 10 episodes are all remarkable as well. It is truly a dazzling cast. I'm very fond of the pacing of the show. I'm sure others may find that it plods along at times, kind of like a horse forced to carry a couple of football players on a tandem ride. But I would argue that these slower moments only heighten the absolute chaos we find the characters and ourselves in when business picks up. The show is driven by 2 things: a tremendously unnerving score, which seems to either rattle around in your chest, or the eerie tones make the hair on your arms stand straight up. It is also primarily driven by Elliot's voiceovers. Narration wouldn't be the right word for how they use it. I found the voiceovers to be a steady assault on your senses. A guttural, melodic thumping, much like Matthew McConaughey's character in Wolf of Wall Street, pounding his chest in front of Leonardo DiCaprio. Typically used while other things are going on screen, you're forced to pay attention to what Elliot is saying directly to us, and focus on what he's supposed to be paying attention to in the scene. You will either absolutely detest his voiceovers and you'll want out immediately, or the drone of his monotone voice will guide you deeper into the show like a lullaby, drifting you further into this dystopian, conspiratorial fever dream. I suggest you get fully present and let him take you all the way into this world they inhabit. I found there were a number of devices they used to make the show visually intriguing and appealing. They never fail to find an opportunity to shoot something from a thought-provoking angle. We get to see someone's reaction from another character's point of view. Crane or drone footage is used often to capture things from places we would never even consider. Or they will tighten a shot over the course of an entire scene, slowly pulling us from one side of the room until we are in a virtual close-up with our characters. Speaking of which, the framing of most scenes is something that stood out to me through both times I've watched the series. We so rarely catch a glimpse of anything more than the chest up, which isn't altogether that rare, but while chest up on any character is the norm, that takes up only 50% of the screen. The other 50% is filled with whatever is going on in the background. To me, it always felt like they may have been trying to get this idea across that all of these people are just barely keeping their heads above water. Just trying to survive in this callous corporate world they are giving their lives to uphold or tear down. The script. I found the script to be quite strong. I'm sure you could find problems with it if you wanted to, and maybe I wanted to like the show, so I didn't. You'll obviously find yourself in one of those camps as well. It feels like a well-crafted show, it feels thoughtful, and it feels like they executed it the way they wanted to. They built characters who feel like real people with real relationships, regardless of how improbable much of their lives seem. But my favorite cool part of the series is when they did an entire episode without any dialogue at all. That's not exactly true, is it? In the opening moments, one character says, "It's cool, dude. We don't have to talk." 40 plus minutes of drama and intrigue go by without a word being spoken, and then the episode closes with another character saying, "It's time we talk." How cool is this show? That could be corny. And I promise you, in context, it isn't. There are so many reasons to keep your eyes glued to the screen with this show. This is not ambient TV. When you hit play on Mr. Robot, leave your phone in another room. You're never really sure what you're watching is actually happening. There are a number of on-screen glitches where people are suddenly no longer in the places on screen they were just seconds before, and they're constantly playing with the timeline, different countries, languages. It is really a fun ride. They even dabble in some Simpsons-like foreshadowing, where political and monetary pressure results in a building being stormed, much like the disaster that happened on January 6th, 2021 at the U.S. Capitol. Listen, this show starts out by letting you know some things right away. The protagonist will be talking to you in voiceovers. They position the bad guys as shadowy characters in an office overlooking a city. Elliot leads us into a conspiracy that these all-powerful shadowy characters are not only acting as society's puppeteers, but they are also following Elliot. Reason? Currently undetermined. And then, with the blink of an eye, they position him as the good guy, a vigilante hacker who is happy to poke around in your digital business if something seems suspect. And if he finds out you traffic in horrific criminal activity, he will take you down. Although he is a hacker, so he pretty much hacks everyone. Mr. Robot really leans into the idea that our society is run by corporations who hit us with a deluge of meaningless distractions that keep us hypnotized and sedated, unlikely to question anything. If you entertain a healthy level of skepticism, I think you'll enjoy this conspiracy-driven drama. If you lean towards alien probes and flat earth truthers, this one might be a little tame for you. But buckle up for 4 seasons of mind-bending TV. Mr. Robot is something you've got to see. Once again, thank you very much for joining us here on It's in the Details. As always, smash the buttons, tell a friend. Let's grow this thing. We'll see you in a week. Take care, y'all. Peace.